Hey guys, my name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing favorite types of romance novels recommendations video. I don't think it's any secret at this point that romance is one of my favorite genres, and I'm really not ashamed of it. I know some people are like, ugh, romance is the worst. Honestly, romance is one of my favorite genres, and I am a complete sucker for a well-written romance. I've been having this idea for a while, like I wanted to make different recommendation videos based off of certain aspects that you like in a romance, but my list for each one of these categories was never long enough for a full video, so I just decided to lump all these 10 categories into one giant romance recommendation video. So I'm gonna be telling you 10 different romance categories, recommending books that fit into all of the 10 romantic categories. Some of the books are gonna overlap in the categories, but that's okay. It just shows how amazing they are and how much they have to them. So let's just jump right into it. First type of romance that I'm going to be talking about is office romances. Office romances are one of my favorite types of romances, and it's probably because both of my parents met in an office in the 80s. These are 3 office romances that I absolutely love and highly recommend. So the first one is going to be The Hating Game by Sally Thorn. This book follows Lucy and Josh, and they both work in an office space together, and it's definitely a hate to love type of relationship. They're both competing to be hired for the same spot, so it's definitely an angsty, amazing romance. I adore Lucy and Josh both so much, and this is one of my favorite romances of all time. Second one is Egomaniac by V. Keelan. This also follows a couple in an office, follows Drew Jagger and Emery Rose, and Drew is a divorce attorney and Emery is a marriage counselor, so it's kind of ironic because their jobs are kind of ironic to each other because she's trying to save marriages and he's trying to help the divorce at the end of the marriage, and it's just such a cute book, and like The Hating Game, there's so much angst and tension, and it's just so good, written so well, and I adore Drew and Emery both so much. And the last office romance I have is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, and this one is definitely a lot different from the other 2. This one follows Lincoln, and it takes place in the 90s. He's hired as an email security in the 90s when email was a new thing, and they wanted to make sure the employees were like doing what they're supposed to. He starts to read these emails that this girl named Beth is sending to her best friend Jennifer, and he falls in love with her through the emails, and it's just so cute, and these characters are just so adorable and relatable, and I love everything about this book. The second category is forbidden romances. So the first one I'm going to recommend is obviously Forbidden by Tabitha Zuma. This book follows a romance between a brother and a sister. Like, it sounds like it's like, oh, shocking, but it's such a beautifully told story, and there's so much pressure put on them by their drunken mother who is just not really there, and they have to raise their siblings together, and it's just such an incredible, beautiful story. And the next ones are both student-teacher romances. They're definitely forbidden, and so that's going to be Unteachable by Leah Rader. This follows a girl named Macy and this guy that's her teacher named Evan, and it's definitely forbidden because she's his student. So next one is also a student-teacher romance, and that is Loving Mr. Daniels by Brittany C. Cherry. This one is also, it follows a girl named Ashlyn and a teacher named Daniel Daniels, and I love both of these characters so much. This one is definitely more emotional or make you cry hardcore. So the next category is LGBT romances. Don't worry, I am going to do a full recommendation video on this in the future, but for now I want to give you my top 3. It's gonna be Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, and this follows Jamie and Wes, who are both hockey players. They meet at a hockey camp when they're both like 13 years old, and then like years later they're coming back to this hockey camp as coaches, and it's like one of my favorites ever. Love this book so much. The next one I have is Aced by Ella Frank and Brooke Blane, and this follows Dylan and Ace. Ace is a movie star. He's like an action movie star, and he recently just came out of the closet, and then Dylan is a model. He's gonna be starring in Ace's next movie for his first acting role, and it's just so good. Ace and Dylan are everything to me, and there's 3 books in this series. It's a series of Dylan and Ace, and they're all good. And then the last one I have is Junkie by Cambria Hebert. This book follows Drew and Trent. Drew is a NASCAR driver. Well, he's not NASCAR, but he's like an indie racer, like a level below NASCAR, and it's so good. And there's 2 books that follow these characters, and they're both really good. Fourth category is intense first loves. A good story about first loves is my freaking weakness, okay? I love good stories about first loves. So the first one I'm going to recommend is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I'm specifically talking about the love story between Atlas and Lily. And Atlas was this homeless 17-year-old boy when she fell in love with him, and oh my god, I love their romance, so definitely one of my faves. Next one is Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino, and this book follows, it's a story within a story. Like, the main character becomes an author in the future and writes the story of how he met the girl. So you read the story of how they met. It's like this beautiful, passionate first love story. Beautiful, and one of my favorite first love stories for sure. Next one is actually another Renee Carlino one, and that's Before We Were Strangers. Follows Matt and Grace, who were first loves when they were in college, and then they lost touch over a period of time, and now 15 years later they spot each other again on the subway in New York City, and it's just this magical first love story that I compare like as a modern day Notebook that I think is just really beautiful, and I love it so much. Highly recommend. And the last one, of course, is The Notebook itself by Nicholas Sparks. Even though I do think the movie is better, but I still think The Notebook has one of the most powerful first love stories of all time. I mean, come on, Noah and Allie, like what? The fifth category is romances that involve sports. The Deal by Elle Kennedy, which follows hockey players. The next one is Moonshot by Alessandra Torre, and this follows a baseball player. He's actually on the Yankees. The romance is with the Batgirl for the team. It's so good. The last one I have, of course, is Him, again by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen, which is also a romance that involves hockey. So the sixth category is well-written love triangles. Love triangles, in my opinion, can either go one of two ways. They can either be really, really terrible and cheesy, or they could be very beautiful and you can actually feel yourself rooting for both sides. So some of my favorite love triangles include One True Loves. This follows Emma, Jesse, and Sam, and this is honestly my favorite love triangle of all time. It's such a rare, unique scenario because Jesse actually dies. Like, Jesse's her husband, and she thinks that he dies in this helicopter accident, and then it's been like 4 years, and she's finally moving on with this guy named Sam, who's really great to her and treats her very well, and then she gets a phone call saying that Jesse was found alive and he's coming back home, and it's just this crazy, like, how do you even make this decision? Dead husband who you loved, who's your first love, is coming back home, but now you're with this sweetheart of a guy named Sam who cares about you. It's just such a great love triangle, such a unique situation, and I love this book, the way it explores grief and love, and it's so beautiful, one of the best. Definitely check it out. The next love triangle I have is in the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. I held up this book in particular because I'm a big fan of Warner in this series, and the love triangle is between Juliet, Adam, and Warner, and I'm obviously more rooting for Warner, but I still think it is a really great love triangle throughout this series. The next one is He Will Be My Ruin by K.A. Tucker. This follows a girl named Celine, and this novel does have some suspenseful elements as well, but it does revolve around a love triangle between Celine and then this guy named Grady and this guy named Jace, and it's just a very interesting love triangle, and I was rooting for both guys at different times in it, so I think this is one of the better love triangles that I've read. And the last love triangle I have is Dangerous Boys by Abigail Has, and this follows a girl named Chloe and two brothers, Oliver and Ethan, and she's kind of like in a love triangle with both of them, and this novel does contain some like suspenseful elements too, and I just think it's a really great, interesting love triangle. The next category is romances with suspense. So I'm sure you can guess the first one I'm going to be mentioning is He Will Be My Ruin by K.A. Tucker. This is probably my favorite romantic suspenseful novel that I've read up to this point. I just think the romance and the suspense are done so well in this book in equal measure. Next one is Hopeless by Colleen Hoover. It follows this girl named Sky who's a senior in high school and this guy named Dean. I didn't love the romance in the beginning of this book, but once you get into the second half, it picks up a lot of suspense, and then I started to like the romance a lot better in the second half. The next one is also a Colleen Hoover book, and that's Confess by Colleen Hoover, and I do think that this is one of her more suspenseful novels. And the last one I want to mention is Deadline by Sandra Brown. This is my favorite Sandra Brown book that I've ever read. I've only read like 2 or 3. Really did like the romance in this. It's definitely not the main focus. This is more of a suspense novel. The romance is written very well in this, and I was surprised by how much the romance is a big part of the story, and I love it. Category 8 is romances that will make you cry. So the first one I have is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because this follows a couple after they've been married for like 9 years, I want to say, and they're just kind of hitting this rut where they're starting to fall out of love with each other and they need some time apart, so they decide to take a year break from each other. It's just such an emotional, beautiful love story. It's definitely one of my favorites, and it had me crying a lot throughout the novel. Next one is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This is definitely probably one of her most emotional books out of all the ones she's published. It follows this guy named Miles and this girl named Tate, and just Miles' past in general just really makes me emotional, and the ending of this book as everything gets resolved was just like, ugh. The next one's kind of obvious, but it's The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and I just wanted to mention this because this is an extremely emotional romance, and it will most likely make you cry. It made me cry while listening to the audiobook, so ugh. And the last one is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Not so much the romance between Atlas and Lily, but the romance between Ryle and Lily had me crying so much throughout most of the book, and it's just such a powerful message and very, very emotional for me. The next category is instant insta-love done right. Usually hate insta-love, but every now and then there comes a book where it is insta-love, but it just works so well for the story and it's so good. It's just written so well. So I only have 2 books for this category, and that is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicole Yoon. Just such a well-written story, and it's so believable, so good, and this is definitely the best insta-love romance I've ever read. And the next one I have is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. This one is a story that follows Fallon and Ben, and they meet randomly on this day in Los Angeles in a restaurant when she's at lunch with her father, and is in a way insta-love because they decide that day that for the next 5 years they're gonna come and meet each other again on every November 9th and have no communication in between the rest of the year. And so it is kind of insta-love in that sense, but it works so well for this book, and I love this book. The last category I have is Adorably Awkward Romances. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell because Kath and Levi are just so cute and adorably awkward, and I love them so much. And then I have Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli because I think Simon is just such an awkward character, and seeing him fall for someone is so insanely cute. And then I have another Rainbow Rowell one, which is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, which is one I previously mentioned, but Lincoln and Beth have such an adorably cute little awkward romance that I love. Those are all of the romance recommendations I have for today. Have you read any of these? What are your favorites out of all of these? I love romance so much, and I could talk about it all day, honestly. What do you guys think? And do you like this type of recommendation video? Do you think I should do it for any other genres? Let me know. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Sorry, my camera battery keeps dying and cutting me off. It's so awkward. I'm sorry if this video is really choppy because of that, but my camera battery's being annoying.